Croeso and welcome to our YouTube channel. This video is all about one of our Lotus Carltons. The car that you're currently seeing is number 11. She's been on the ramp now for a couple of years, being taken back and restored to the factory standards. I'll let the guys explain what's going on and I hope you enjoy the video.
So do I start from the beginning or where I was?
Start from the beginning.
Alright.
Hello Mr. Reese, how you doing?
Not too bad.
Diane, spot on. So, we're all new to this YouTube malarkey. This is Reese, Mr. Reese,
Hello.
who's a fabricator that comes in a couple of days a week. A wonderful job on this Lotus Carlton number 11. You can see it at a glance. It's already having quite a bit of work, and it has done for how long now?
I don't want to put a date on it.
Many months. But it spent a year with just sort of pulling the engine out, collecting bits, trying to find out through a variety of people on forums who, you know who you are, thank you very much, you've been doing a cracking job. So yeah, we got a lot of panels, we've got a couple of new doors. So all we're going to do is just walk through what we've done to it since we've started actually working on it. It's a royal we, because the majority of it has been this chap over here.
We did start on this back corner. It's hard to really tell at the moment, but it was pretty rotten.
This is a photo of the arch before anything was done to it, and I think that gives you all a slightly better idea of just how badly it had gotten.
All corner, Sill does need doing still. This was this. We chopped it out and we replaced it with a new one. We've done the inner and the outer. Now the tricky bit about this was there was so little of the metal remaining. We didn't really know where to start. A lot of these holes were missing, so it was just complete rock hole.
Total guesswork, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the repair panels you buy are, I don't know much about these cars. What's the non-Lotus?
Based on the GSI 3 litre as opposed to the Centre.
Yeah. So you can't, there are no Lotus panels because they didn't exist. They didn't make new panels. They took the standard car and chopped. Yeah, we still do it now. We do it with all the drift cars and stuff, and Skylines. You just chop them, tub them, put a wide arch kit on it. Yeah. So when you buy a repair panel, you get one of these, which has got you that flat arch. It's kind of useless, so we didn't need it. Yeah. So we kind of took our estimates from this and found where Lotus would cut.
I think we were lucky, weren't we? I think we had like one hole.
We had one hole
initially, and
we had a little bit of curve. So I followed the curve trajectory, and with all my measurements based off a lot of help from online and forums and all sorts, we were able to find out where the holes needed to be. Now there's one thing you'll probably notice which looks really ugly. This square cut here.
What's that about?
Oh, it's disgustingly ugly. And I don't know why, but that is factory Lotus.
Yeah. And I will add, this was the whole point of this one, because we're lucky enough to have two, number 62 and this one, number 11, is that you may well know, or you may not, we'll do another video of it in the future. Number 62 we mucked around with a little bit, but it was very important to us that this one was going back to absolute factory. So whatever fabrication was getting done, it had to be as it came out of the factory. That's why Mr. Reese is here.
But yeah, so basically Lotus would have had a standard car and they buzz cut straight through. They had a template which comes down on top of the car with a marking for their grinder. And then they had several holes, which then they just bung straight through. Drill would come down, they bung straight through on the holes, and then they pinch them together. Yeah. This then, the inner arch was then rolled and folded up and over, so we got the outer arch would sit on it. So we had to replicate all of that. The inners were gone, everything was gone. But I hate this. I hate that little cut. But it's a Lotus factory cut, and I was so unsure about it. We had loads of pictures from other people's ones.
We were lucky enough to get some pictures from other people.
They hadn't been tampered with, and it was square cut there. When the arch goes on, you can see why.
But you can see from the other when the minute you get to the other side.
There's a bit on the fiberglass which tucks under, so it needs that to be able to sit there. Yeah. And I wasn't sure with how wide the wheels are, whether it was a little bit extra clearance or whatnot. But it did actually have that cut.
And of course, these all changed. We've had people occasionally that have been involved a little bit with when the Lotus Carltons were done initially, but one guy specifically that worked in the factory who was quite helpful on a number of factors. But the one thing he did say was that every kind of 20, they redesigned a little bit, found better ways of doing things. So with this being number 11, the chances are this was the very initial, this is how we're going to turn it into a beefed up GSI 3 litre. So quite interestingly, the later ones could look quite different underneath the plastics.
We had a guy who came round to the museum, I think probably 3-4 months ago, and he used to work in the Lotus factory. He did say that they were very quick and very slapdash. I don't know how true this is, but what they'd do is they'd make their cuts, they'd drill the holes, they'd put the kit on and send it out. There was no primer, no protection, no nothing put on all the drill holes. And looking at the way it's rusted here, I am inclined to believe it, because you can see it's all around where the holes were, where it started. Yeah. So water got in between the two seams, ran down to either end and started the rot. Yeah. We did Valance. This was actually chopped here. I wanted to retain the top edge because it wasn't rotten, it was nice, and then we got to keep our lines and make sure everything matched up. So we could put a bottom corner of the Valance.
So this image here is of the bottom corner of the Valance that the guys had removed whilst managing to keep the top part, just to make the refabrication of the section a little bit easier.
We did a lot around the lights as well. This, I think we had 3 layers, and that was all rotten there.
It has been the tricky part of the majority of this, hasn't it? The fact that most of these, they're not just, you know, your average car, you're just cutting out the rot, you're welding a panel, or many times you just welding a panel over the top that was there before. But with these, it was important to get each layer exactly where it should have been.
I have been told the importance of the car. When I first saw it, you guys said, can you come and restore a car? Yeah, okay, it's Classic Car Museum. What have you got? It's going to be something 60s, 70s. When I turned up and I saw you were doing a 4-door Vauxhall from the 90s, I thought, what the hell are you doing that for? I didn't know about the Lotus Carlton. I'm going to take that on the chin.
It was an education for him.
Yeah, 90s cars are not really my thing, unless you're talking Japanese. Every layer, every skin had to be put back on to factory spec within the tolerance.
Like you can see in the back of here.
All of this was rotten, and it was rotten around here too, so we all had to make. So I've made most of that from scratch. This corner, the boot floor went. So
I know the guys said that it had gotten bad, but I don't really think unless you can see the rot that you actually get to understand just how bad we were on about. So anyway, yeah, this is the boot floor that they're currently on about.
We had to fabricate all of this
there really was nothing left
to the original stampings. Don't punish me for the seam sealer. It's going to sound like a lie, but the seam sealer is kind of messy on purpose, because when you look at the original seam sealer, you can see these kind of brush strokes and lines in it. I wanted an attempt to match the lines as it flows from one seam sealer to the new seam sealer. It's a bit messy, but on purpose is what I'm going with.
We did tell him it had to be like it came out the factory.
It needs to match and look right. This side was kind of like the bane of my existence for a fair few weeks. Petrol cap was a problem.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that just calling it a problem is a very, very nice way of describing this petrol cap.
Outer arch, which was only just to above this line, and then this was actually the inner. And this caused me so much grief.
Once again, Chris is making things out to be much, much nicer than they seem. I think I would call this personally a nightmare. So on the front is the bit that he's just shown you, and behind is the new panel that he'd managed to make, which is now on the Lotus.
You have the cup from the petrol cap, which sits on here, which you can see in there. That was the cup. Now, the cup needed welding, so I've repaired the cup because I wanted to keep all of these nice shapes on the inside, so I just put an edge on it. But that then sat on top of this, which this is clearly rotten. All of that was meant to be your arch, and it was all gone. This was a nightmare.
It was from the beginning when Reese first saw this car, and we had the wander around to see what needed doing after the plastics were removed. This was the bit he was least looking forward to until he completed it, and then he moved on to the next bit that he was least looking forward to.
It's like every bit tops it. Yeah.
So this is the next least favourite bit that he had to kind of do next. I'm showing you the sill first because all you guys are going to see is a really perfectly fitted, brand new sill. But this is actually what was laying underneath.
Brand new, as you can see, just underneath the primer there, we got the brand new panel. It's put to the spot welds, so we've got brand new all the way. There's no joins anywhere apart.
Well, he gave us what we knew was the correct shape.
Yeah, there was a sill on it, but unfortunately the inner, we put a camera down there and the inner wasn't looking good, so we thought we'll take off the sill just so we can make sure the inner was right, because that was the inner. I do have pictures of the remade inner, which was done as close to factory as I could.
So this first image is of the rotten inner sill that was on it previously, and the second image is a new refabricated sill that is currently on the car.
What was nice to see when I was doing it, the majority, when I was doing it, I wasn't doing it, he was doing it. I don't know why these were put in originally. Maybe it was to let water through, I doubt it. But either way, most people would not have worried about putting the holes back in. Mr. Reese, to be fair, as good as he is, made all these exactly the same, so the inner sill, which you never see, is exactly the same as the original.
When I put the pressings in, I didn't have the die big enough, so my holes are slightly too small. That pressed edge and that recess is going to create more strength that way
Than just a flat
than
panel.
a flat panel. Yeah. Right, we did the sill again, it was all the way along, and we cut it off just about here. The thing I really struggled with on this bit
I know what's coming.
the doors.
Yeah.
The doors wouldn't fit.
And that's because these doors, out of all the car, these two doors were horrendous. The originals were pretty much unrepairable. So again, I can't remember, if you're watching this video, you know who you are, that we got the doors off. Nice fella up country. And he had a couple of doors for us. So with them not being from the original car, they need to do a bit of alteration.
They were original Lotus Carlton doors.
Yeah.
Was it?
Well, one of them was. One of them was.
So they had the holes for the kit to go on. The problem I found was the hinges. The hinges have no play, no movement.
No.
There is no bolts holding them on, there's one pin. The bracket for one part of the hinge welded to the door directly. You can see it in here. So one part of the bracket is welded directly to the car, and the other part of the bracket is welded directly to the door. So the issue you've then got is the car bracket was welded in place with the door on from a different damn car. Because we put the door on and it was angled wrong, it was sitting too low, it was an absolute nightmare. And readjusted and cut, welded and moved the hinges to get these doors to sit flush. It was both of them as well.
Yeah.
And to get the lines to match top and bottom, and to get the gap for the sill for the
And
kit
then
to go
line
in.
up with all the wings and everything else.
Line up with your roof line and everything. It was an
was a
absolute
pig of a job,
nightmare because they weren't meant to be on. The hinges from a different car, I'm assuming they were welded in situ. So every single door from these is never going to fit another car, from what I've kind of seen from this. So yeah, we get round to the front, which we have had a new wing. The old wing was going to be it could be repaired, but the work, when we got another wing, no need.
The GSI.
Yeah. So it was off the GSI, so it meant that we had the full wing.
Yeah.
So the only issue really on here was to template out where the holes were, drill the holes for the arch, and then by use of the old arch, templating what was kind of left, framework where Lotus made their cut.
Yeah. And again, luckily enough, we had enough, didn't we? Because we ended up
just
cutting.
about,
You see the marks on here.
Yeah.
Effectively, we cut out a bit of what was left of the original wing, which give Reese an idea where it was all going to sit. Luckily, with the other side, to some degree, because we're going to utilise the original wing, it should be a bit easier, hopefully. Yeah, we did get another wing for the other side. Unfortunately, it was off a Senator. We didn't realise this to getting back.
So then after the wing, we've done all inner footwell. This bit was a fun one. We had to make all of these shapes and try to go original, but it also had a captive bolt in there for the plastic nuts that go on to keep the plastic trim inside, the inner arches. The chassis leg, which has had a lot of welding done on it. It wasn't really bad, it wasn't completely hanging, but there were some areas of concern. This is really common. GSI, Lotus, whatever you're looking at, they're the same chassis leg, they're the same panels.
Yeah.
This is a really bad point for rot. You'll see it on most of them. And it's because of this layer here. Now there's three skins attached to it. You've got this outer one, which is your chassis leg, this inner one, which is your sort of your inner tub. Then you've got a middle one, which goes down and across, which forms the cap to your chassis leg. But it provides this little gap all the way along. And from factory, it's not got any seam sealer in it. So for the only thing I'm doing at the moment, which is not in factory, I've bung the seam sealer along the top.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, I just don't like it.
We don't want it happening again.
Water will get up in there, run down here and sit in that seam, and I am almost positive that's why they all go in the same place.
Well, it's the biggest problem on these Lotus Carltons, and like a lot of these, the style of the way it's done, it just gathers the water inside.
Yeah.
And we knew this was gone because when the guys at Star Auto Care had it at their place initially for sort of doing a sensitive startup with the engine for us a while back now, they noticed eventually some holes in the actual sidewall. Well, after the Senator that we did a number of years ago, I noticed then that there's got a hole in the outside. You guarantee the top of the chassis leg is gone.
put all the way along.
Which was the only one we did. Actually, we were very lucky actually that we did have one of the chaps on the Lotus forums that had a spare top chassis leg.
Yeah, you did get that panel, which it was actually a really nice fit. A lot of them were a bit ropey, but that was a really nice fit. Yeah. So we did a bit along here, along on this rail, and then the new cap that went on, and then this is that skin you saw from the inside. So there's 3 sandwiched together at this point.
These areas are like, especially down that part there, they're probably holding most of the strength. The subframe at the front, of course, there's a lot of stress on that sort of bottom down there. And the design is poor because, of course, any water that goes in through the holes on the top naturally sinks to the bottom of that chassis down there. So yeah, it was quite a lot of repair, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was actually the easy side. This side, this side's been a real trouble. The battery tray had to be done, so it was only like a section being put in. We had to repair and put a section of that. Underneath the battery tray was gone as well, so we had to put a bit in for it to go too. That chassis leg, that has been an absolute nightmare. So that back corner where you got I think it's the steering attachment bolted to it, that was all completely gone. I've got a piece of it. That's what was left in one part. I can't find the rest of it, but in one part, that was the chassis. And you can see the different layers of thickness of the chassis steel. To have rotted through that and puffed the way it has. Look around here, you can see where they've been. So I've gone from about here, all of this is new, and underneath and the other side, making sure to keep all the bolt holes exactly where they should be, because there's an inner piece in there, an inner strengthener for everything to bolt to. So underneath there was rotten, so I cut the bracket, took the bracket off, and then welded up all the inside of that and put new steel in there, and then put the bracket back over, and this one as well. I'm not going to say there's no filler, but there is a very thin skim of filler I've put on the rear arches, but there's no steps or anything. People will go for that lapped joint, and you'll even get repair panels from the factory which will then put this joggled edge, this lap joint in it, and then you can put one panel behind, the other panel slots in on top, and then you fill the gap. That's fine, but you're welding 1 mil and it will warp, it will move. You could do one spot and that metal's going to shrink. So you need to be able to dolly it out. Now when you've got this second skin, this lap join coming behind, which serves no purpose at all apart from to collect water in between the 2 seams, you then have got your weld going along here, and you can't panel beat it. You need to be able to hit both sides of the metal, one with a hammer, one with a dolly, to stretch it back out. So if you butt weld and you get close, it hasn't even got to be dead on. TIG welding, panel fit's very important. MIG welding, you keep yourself a little gap, you hit it, you fill the gap with the MIG weld, and you'll have one continuous stream of metal all the way through. So when you do flush the outside, you know you've got your thickness in the core. So then you've got this 2 sheets together, thickness of the weld there, flush it both sides, and if you have warped it and you've got dings and dents or any kind of movement from your welding, a dolly and a hammer will bring that right back out. No extra bits for water to catch in, no edges. I'm sure there's 100 ways to skin a cat. That's just my preferred method. I like the butt joint.
Can I just say, we don't actually skin cats here. That is
it's just a term.
Don't worry, it's just a term.
So I've got this last piece I'm putting in now. You can see that's butt welded again. As far as the welds go, we are just tacking at the moment. There's some. This was welded from the other side, so you can see this is actually the penetration from the other side. And this is what I was on about. When you get that weld and you've got the penetration from both sides, you flush this side, you flush the other side, and you know you've got that thickness right in the core of where the weld.
Interestingly, from here now, obviously with a slight turn, we can see the next big orifice.
This is my next
You've been looking forward
adventure.
to this one, haven't you? Yeah.
No, up on top down in there we've got another hole which is in the same kind of place. You're probably not going to be able to catch it on camera, but they're all linked. And I can't get to any of them. So the only thing I can think of is by taking off this really nice fresh bit of steel. So what we're going to do is going to drill out all the spot welds, cut a couple of the welds you can see around the edges, take this entire cap off, then I'll be able to get to build all the layers as they should be, one by one. If it had been an MOT patch and you were just trying to get yourself back on the road, you could plate and you could make it work, but just for it to be right, you need to be able to get in there.
I mean, I've seen on many cars, this isn't just Vauxhalls, you know, wherever that hole is for electrics to go through to the inside.
All those bungs, they always go.
And we're not forgetting, of course, now this is a I think it's 91, this is 1991. Anyway, it's a 30-plus-year-old car and a 30-plus-year-old Vauxhall.
To me, anything in the 90s is a new car.
Well, the irony is it's a relatively new car for the museum.
Yes.
This is one of the young, sprightly vehicles.
Other than that, we're going to salvage this door. That's all surface, there's no issues
This
there.
was the best door remaining.
Yeah.
Only 2 doors, obviously, we're keeping for the original.
And then that door is salvageable. This one we're going to put a bottom on. Gone on the corner, and it's getting a bit thin when you actually have a look on the inner skin. It's a bit thin, so we'll put a bottom on that one.
It's a really bad design. We mentioned earlier on that, you know, these were the first lot, which this would have been the first of a batch of 20. I'm sure maybe these were improved. I don't know. I've not seen on the latest. Maybe it was a better design. But these are built out of normal steel. I can't find the bits now, but effectively they were just strips of steel that were riveted in place, and they held the bottom of the body kit on the door. So of course the water comes down behind, sits in there, rusts it out, and that's why that's got a bit worse. So the other side were completely gone.
But not only that, if that guy was right that we were speaking to before and they didn't primer the holes, they would have drilled their holes straight through, no primer, and then a rivet straight through. So you're going to have alley touching mild steel with oxygen, or water, everything going in. So it's always going to be a recipe for disaster on that. We are going to put another sill on this side. And if you have a look at the sill, it's had a new sill, which isn't too bad. It's a nice bit of steel, it's okay. But if you look here, you can see how it's been put on, and I'm not a fan. This is all meant to be butt welded and seamed, and you can see what's happened. They've capped it over the top, and the old is still under there, rotting away.
So we've just had a place in on eBay, but all the way from Europe. Took a few weeks, but we've got another seal coming. Well, in fact, it's here.
Yes, and it's a good panel. eBay, and I don't know, it was cheap as well, wasn't it?
It's about 80 quid, I think.
Yeah, so it's not too bad.
And it's a complete sill.
Yeah, and I fitted one to the other side, and do you know what? The fit was really nice.
Yeah.
Like, it did slot in really well, so I was happy with that one. So we got the same one for this one.
We temporarily put the kit on the other side, and it all matched up well.
Yeah.
So fingers crossed, it should do the same on this side. I suppose it's back to the front wings then, isn't it?
Yeah, because we've got, that wing's okay, we've sorted that one now, and we've got the holes drilled in. This one, I'm going to repair. There's enough on here with the bolt holes and the curvature that I'll repair all of this and put new pieces in. They're nothing major, so it shouldn't be too bad. Yeah. You can see these in a structure, which adds the strength when you bolt on that arch. And they're pretty tired.
That's right.
And you're pulling bits off it already. But they are tired. So you did have a guy that was able to, was it reproduce them, or they?
Yeah, they were hoping to. He was let down as well, unfortunately. I think you're going to have a go at remanufacturing them, aren't you?
Yes, whether to see what a sandblaster would do first, but I think it's going to get real thin.
And there's so many curves every which way, it's actually quite a complicated panel.
If I can get away with making that in 2 pieces, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a lot of shape going on there.
You said it now. It's got to be done in 2 pieces. Yeah. We'll hold you to that.
Did I say 2? I meant 6.
And hopefully that's kind of the last bit, I think, isn't it?
Those will be the last bit, yeah. Once we've completed this chassis leg, sill, door, and then it's wing in the inner structures.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3 years I'll be done.
Well, it was, I think you were hoping when you initially that it was going to be set up by Christmas.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of September last year, wasn't it? Hopefully by Christmas we should be done. And then it moved through to, well, maybe end of January, February. Well, now we're in March and we're thinking, yeah, it's still a fair bit to do. But that's the problem with renovations of old vehicles. Sometimes you just find problems that it just gets harder and harder, and there's more and more. Anybody that's done welding will know on jobs like this, you think it's going to be a certain amount of time when you dig around a bit and it's a bit more and a bit more.
Whatever it looks like on the outside, it's 5 times worse on the inside.
Yeah. That's why he keeps saying, Mr. Matt, he keeps saying, are you ready to put all these wires back in yet? Are you ready to put all these wires back in yet? And the guy that took the engine out for us, he was the same. He says, that engine ready to go back in yet? Nobody wants to forget, but hopefully this year it will be back in paint, and then maybe we can get some of this back together.
I'm confident that it'll get painted this year.
Yeah, I would think so.
If I was here full time, I think we would have pushed a bit more.
Yes. Yeah.
But being part time, it's dragging a bit.
But it's all right. Rome wasn't built in a day, and nor were Lotus Carltons. Thank you very much, Mr. Reese, for the bit of a rundown of what's been going on.
And hopefully, I've done any of the Lotus Carlton fans, cult following. We're going to have to call them a cult.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, hopefully I've done them justice with the restoration that's going on with it.
I would think so.
Those are the guys you want to impress, the ones that are looking for factory original.
Well, we're impressed with what you're doing. We're very happy with it. It's coming together very nicely. So let's see where it comes. So that's our first little instalment for you, how the Lotus Carlton's been going on. I'm not going to hold you to any dates of when things will be ready, but just keep an eye out for the next instalment. We will do one when we've got the next sort of step along. That'll be a bit more interest to you, hopefully. So thanks very much for watching, and keep an eye on our new YouTube channel. We'll see what comes with the next one. Take care.